So, back in the simpler times of 2013, the Draw My Life trend took over YouTube. Basically, it had creators give an introspective and endearing overview of their personal lives. These videos were generally a recap of major milestones in their lives, from circumstances surrounding their birth, all the way to how they found themselves where they were at that moment in time. More likely than not, wealthy millionaire with lots of subscribers and an annual invitation to VidCon. But it's been 10 years. The Draw My Life trend was wonderful, and I think it should come back. These videos were so sweet and a spectacular look into a lot of creators' lives. So I'm bringing this back. If you're a creator, you should make one of these too. Let's get rolling. I was born September 28th, 1999 in Boise, Idaho, just barely a Libra. I was named Nathan Wayne Burr, with Wayne being my dad's first name. My little brother was born in December 2001. He was named Scotland after my dad's love for the country. Parents split in 2001, so as far as I'm concerned, I've always been a kid with two households. I was raised on a steady stream of PBS Kids, the same 4 scratch SpongeBob DVDs, and whatever movies Scotland decided to rewatch every day religiously for a month at a time. I could probably recite the entirety of the Clifford movie if you put a gun to my head. My mom worked as a teacher, and she would bring me into her classroom to draw and play with construction paper while she made lesson plans and the like. I started to draw pictures of Spider-Man and Superman. Seeing this, my family started to get me art kits for Christmas and the like. At daycare, my favorite toys were always the Lincoln Logs and the building blocks. I just really liked to make stuff. Elementary school was rapidly approaching. I was nervous. One of my uncles pulled me aside one day and said, "All you have to do is be the first kid to have a girlfriend and you're all set." By God, I took that seriously. First day of school, I got sat next to a girl. I looked over at her and I was like, "Do you want to be my girlfriend?" And she was like, "Sure." So we proceeded to date as much as you could as a 5-year-old. Our parents organized sleepovers, we went to half-price Happy Meal nights, walked around our neighborhoods, and we spent a ton of time playing our Nintendo DS's. She was quirky. She was the kind of kid who would see my mom walking into class, wave, and yell, "Top of the morning to ya!" She was into weird stuff like the Spore video games. She told me about weird TV shows where there's this giant suit of armor that talks like a 7-year-old kid. And her sense of humor was way ahead of its time in regards to the meme potential. I got in a serious car wreck when I was 5 years old and both vehicles were totaled. She went out of her way to make sure that I was okay the next day at school. She was awesome. What a good human being. In the 3rd grade, my teacher thought I was a genius. I submitted a book report to her and she pulled me aside one day and told me it was the best paper any student had ever given to her. Obviously, I was awestruck and under the impression that I was a genius, in fact. I started writing stories on Microsoft Word and handing them to her nonstop just so she would shower me with praise. That teacher even enrolled me in a summer writing camp. I got a Nintendo DSi for my 10th birthday, and there was this app called Flipnote Studio. It blew my mind. It was a little animation program where you made cartoons frame by frame, recorded audio using the built-in microphone, and then you uploaded your creations to the internet. There was some seriously clever and brilliant stuff on the online selection. My favorite creator being a guy named Gizmo. He made tons of videos involving stick figures with highly expressive faces and silly scenarios. I wonder if that had any influence on me all these years later. In my later elementary years, everyone in class was given a writing journal. Oh boy, that made me excited. We needed to use it for assignments for sure, but I went out of my way to fill it out with my own stories and jokes and comics. I made original characters, ongoing storylines, and tons of stolen jokes from Flipnote. For pretty much all of my elementary school experience, my mom was the entire school's music teacher. Everybody knew it and they kept reminding me of it. She had to stay at work an extra hour every day to reply to emails and stuff, so I got to use some of the classroom computers to watch YouTube. Peanut Butter Gamer was actually the first individual creator I ever found and adored on my own. Film Cow, JonTron, God bless the soul of Fred Figglehorn, they were some of my favorites. Flipnote and YouTube turned me into a proto-zoomer, spouting out internet pop culture references to all my annoyed classmates. Exploring YouTube one day, I found some fan edit of Gorillaz music videos set to Mr. Blue Sky by the Electric Light Orchestra. I thought Gorillaz was some cartoon and I started to dig into them. Turns out it's a band. I had never listened to non-Christian music on my own, so let's check them out and oh god, they're good.
So this is what music can be.
It was emotional and exciting and dramatic and personal and not just, one note. My dad was very enthused about the new excitement around music. He started blasting bands like Modest Mouse in the car religiously. We Were Dead Before the Ship Even Sank and Good News for People Who Love Bad News are pillar albums for me. A 20-something-year-old lunch lady at school wore a Gorillaz t-shirt one day, and you would have thought that I had seen the president walk in or something. She told me she got it from some store called Hot Topic. I insisted to my mom that we visit there. That didn't turn out well. Meanwhile, my dad met some super cool lady and got remarried. My stepmom had no idea that she would be voiced by the odd ones out so many years later.
And now it's ruined! God! Out of here!
Okay, elementary school's done. My friend and I survived. I discovered that I like writing and drawing cartoons, listening to alternative music, and YouTube. Pretty solid start for a 12-year-old. In middle school, I started going through some changes. What a shocker. I was super worried about looking cool, so I stocked up on more band shirts. I tried to be selective of who I was friends with. That translated to me distancing myself from my quirky, charming, weird elementary school friends, including that one. I'm sorry. I was so unbelievably self-conscious and hyper-focused on looking as masculine as possible. I signed up for a brutal conditioning class, tried to act tough, but in reality, I was still some nerd with a DeviantArt account. I kept a weekly blog on that account detailing my life and all the shenanigans I was getting up to. I'd post drawings from time to time, but it was all about the journal, man. I discovered Swoozy on YouTube and something just clicked, man. He made stick figures, he told cool stories, he was masculine the way I wanted to be masculine, he was Christian, he was funny, he was charismatic. It was a match made in heaven. Those videos blew my mind and my whole family loved them. I got a bit more serious about cartooning and wound up writing a few full-length comic books. They started getting more complex with character development, emotional arcs, meta elements where I, the author, became an active character and intervened using my powerful Deus Ex Machina abilities. Not a self-insert character, I mean the cartoon characters would shout out to me as if I was an omnipotent god watching them, because to be fair, I absolutely was. I decided I wanted to get into acting and filmmaking, so my parents legitimately got me an agent. I did some auditions for little films here and there. I even had a shot at Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close. I wound up getting cast on a serious short film based on an award-winning screenplay by Jake Lee Hand called 270. I played the main character alongside some kid named Aiden Alexander. I wonder what he's up to anyway. Huh, good for him. I had a blast making that movie, but as far as acting goes, I wasn't very good. It was a one and done type deal, and I'm glad I did it. I did a few more commercials here and there, but the acting thing kind of stopped within 2 years. Even though I was trying my best to be cool for everyone, I still dropped my garden art class. I got along great with our teacher and even ate most of my lunches in her room because trying to fit in at what I thought was the cool kid table was way too difficult. She really liked me, and she even invited me to join her ultra-exclusive advanced art class. You had to audition to get into it, and only 5 or 6 kids in the entire school ever made the cut. I auditioned, and I made the cut. Even though I had abandoned most of my childhood friends, I was getting along okay for myself. That conditioning class actually worked wonders and turned me into a buff 13-year-old. DeviantArt was fine. I got accepted in the most prestigious art class in the school. What could possibly go wrong? I got into a fist fight. Some school bullies were physically beating up a classmate who had Down syndrome. Nobody was doing anything. I had this macho tough guy thing going on, so I got in the bullies' faces and told them to back off. They responded with, "What are you gonna do about it?" So I punched him in the face. His buddy sucker punched me from behind and sent me spinning. He tried to double leg me, but my dad was a wrestling coach. I'd been preparing for this moment my entire life. I wound up on top of the kid and started wailing on his face until one of the parents in the parking lot physically pulled me from him. I got on the bus, rode home, and started crying once I stepped off the bus and into my neighborhood. Even though I got more points than the other kids, the whole ordeal was traumatizing. Call me a little piss baby, I don't care. It scared me. It made me feel alone and hated, angry, aggressive, and those are not good things to feel. It got so bad that my parents pulled me from that school and started me on a homeschool curriculum by a Christian school. I distinctly remember the science book having a timeline of the world going back 6,000 years with Noah's Ark in the middle. Before each test, they told you to pray for the best outcome. It was really silly. Since I was home alone on homeschool packet books, I got to listen to Pandora Radio all day long. My dad had recently got me started on My Chemical Romance, so Pandora figured out that I like stuff like The Used, The Shins, The Arctic Monkeys, favorite Worst Nightmare era, mind you, Early Imagine Dragons, Midtown, The High Court, Blink-182. So much of my music taste was formed during those months by myself, just listening to music and not doing Christian workbooks. I actually started getting more involved with my church, which was a lot more fun than those workbooks. We played games, ate food, watched movies, and I made friends with the older dudes who kind of mentored me. We met every week for discipleship, but really it was more of a dedicated time for us to just talk about our lives, our feelings, and support each other through it. That discipleship group was so unbelievably healthy for me growing up, and it definitely granted me a lot of emotional maturity moving forward. That summer, we went to the Creation Christian Music Festival in Washington. It was my first time ever looking at live music and thinking, that looks fun. A few weeks later, I even volunteered for a Christian summer camp, and I wound up getting scary storytelling band. I'm not joking, they now have a formal rule disallowing counselors from telling scary stories because of me. I needed a new school. Thankfully, there was another option in my town, a charter school. Tons of our church friends swore by it, saying it was incredible. And by golly, it was exactly what I needed. There were no cool kids there. Everyone was equally weird. This 8th grade class was structured more like an elementary school setting where we only had one teacher handling everything, and she was good. She was like Robin Williams in Dead Poet Society good. She brought out the best in everyone, served as a guiding star and role model, and she went above and beyond in everything she did. She created an environment where I was good to just shed that dumb facade I'd worked on the year previously. She pushed me to make more cartoons, write stories, act in school performances. I discovered I love making videos during some of my class assignments with her. We made elaborate scripted movies where I directed my best friends around. She showed them to the entire class, and it was kind of awesome being celebrated by my peers. 8th grade was pretty spectacular for me. It helped lay the foundation for who I am as a person. This is when you started to see the seeds of future Nate. There was lots of good personal growth for sure, but things started to get dark with the old friend group, including childhood best friend. Some intense and serious stuff happened on that front, and I tried to step in and help things improve, but in reality, I was subconsciously looking for absolution for my actions the year prior. I took a bad situation and made it just a bit worse with my involvement. That wound up becoming a huge source of guilt and shame for me years after. I was starting to become a fully formed and thoughtful person, but I was still 13 in the proximity of some serious adult-scale situations. I mishandled some fragile and important stuff. It's a bummer, but you can only grow from it, you know? Adolescence is complicated and weird, and it often doesn't have storybook endings. My middle school experience wrapped up on a complicated but overall positive note. I was now staring down something that had once seemed incredibly far away and daunting. I was about to enter That was a pretty emo summer. My Chemical Romance officially took over my life. I started wearing skinny jeans, and I stocked up at Hot Topic for that school year. This is a picture of me on my first day of freshman year, and I will never get tired of this. The school district only had one high school, so every kid I'd ever known got funneled into one giant building. So all the old friends I'd been a jerk to and all the new nerds who I was pals with just kind of meshed together. And thank heavens, I'd grown and matured as a person a little bit. I became pals with some of the old childhood friends again, although things were still awkward. All my fault. Freshman year was it, man. It was the stuff that high school movies were made of. There were potent crushes, skipping class, an emo phase to end all emo phases, potent crushes, new friends, exploring neighborhoods, hopping fences. Did I mention potent crushes? That potent crush actually showed me a band that she was into called 21 Pilots. Remember that Gorillaz realization I had as a kid? I had it again. My favorite thing about them was how intensely DIY their grassroots were. If these awkward rural church kids could make cool music, maybe I could too. I asked for a ukulele for Christmas that year, and I got one. I learned everything on it. There were Frank Iero songs by The Used, and of course, I learned everything by 21 Pilots. I picked it up and I was competent with it in just a few hours. I tried writing songs of my own. I remember thinking, what's the most potent source of emotional complexity and discomfort in my life? So I wrote a song called So Far Running using the first two chords that I learned. As fun as public high school was, my grades were abysmal. Bad. Turns out that skipping classes and making out with various girls behind the bleachers is really bad for your academic well-being. As a result, my parents decided to enroll me in another charting school. Worked before, right? I still had the adolescent wiggles in me. So that summer was by far the wildest I'd ever had. I was flirting with cuties in summer school, I was writing more books, vandalizing abandoned houses, sleepovers, throwing parties while my parents were out of town, the like. Frank Iero and The Celebration came to Boise, Idaho to play a coffee shop, and I was stoked to see him. He played with the same passion in that cafe that he did arenas with My Chemical Romance. I remember walking up to him after his show completely awestruck, and I told him, "I think your show inspired me to start a band." And he was like, Cool, dude. Sophomore year rolls around and it's a prim and proper smarty pants charter school with noticeably harder curriculum than I was used to. The cool thing about strict environments is that they only embolden angsty teenagers. This was me at the peak of my angsty punk rock tryhard phase. I joined a band called Cadus on bass guitar. The songs were obnoxiously misogynistic and reminiscent of Weiner's Sum 41. My parents really didn't like the music, but I was outside doing stuff now. I discovered there was an incredible music scene in Boise under my nose that blew my mind. I learned how to book shows, I became friends with the connections that my 20-something-year-old bandmates already had, and I kind of made a name for myself as a little scamp. I went on to book a tiny little punk rock music festival in my hometown. The lineup was a handful of some fairly unknown locals and my band headlining, since all the shows we could get were 21+, and I wanted my friends to be able to see how cool we were. I promoted that show as if the Beatles were coming to town. I got a hold of my local newspaper, I went crazy on social media, and I hung flyers all over town. A local church threw a fit online about the flyers, which spurred a huge counter-protest that inflated Punk in the Park's attendance from maybe 40 to over 300. We sold muffins and shirts to make fun of that whole church online thing, and we made a lot of money for a mental health charity. We wound up doing a second Punk in the Park that summer, and we got the band, the Home Team, to roll through town before they became super famous. They're good dudes in real life. They made me feel super appreciated considering that I was 15 when I booked them. Not to brag or anything, but I also went on to win the school talent show for playing a mashup of Ode to Sleep and Migraine by 21 Pilots. That was kind of fun. Charter school was not working out academically. Grades were something that I was constantly fighting with my parents about. We decided that I probably needed to go to the bad kids school in town since they didn't give out homework. It was completely self-paced. They interviewed each student to make sure that they were a good fit. They sat down with my family and me, and they had a checklist of a lot of dysfunctional signifiers that they were looking for. After talking with us, the principal was like, okay, you clearly have a history of depression, delinquency, and deep-seated existential dread lurking in your soul. That's 3 checks. We just need a 4th. It looks like your grades are too good. The principal looked at me intently and said, your finals are next week, right? It would be a real shame if you were to absolutely bomb those finals, lower your GPA, and, I don't know, retake those classes here and fix everything. We'll check back with you in a few weeks. With a wink, they were gone. So I bombed my finals on purpose. I came to school in pajamas while everyone was dressed in suits. I was making designs in the test sheets, doodling on the sides of papers. I had 3 of my 5 teachers pull me aside and tell me that they had never been more disappointed with a student in their entire careers. I had never felt so free in my entire life. The bad kid school accepted me. No homework ever again. So, that summer, I realized I was an atheist. There was no great tragedy to make me turn my back on God. Nothing dramatic like the Christian movies make it out to be. Just the science didn't check out. The history was all over the place. God's apparently an all-powerful, all-knowing being, but he also requires the existence of pain and suffering to forge a meaningful relationship with his creations. And if you're not friends with him when you die, despite him apparently providing ample existence in the natural world that he doesn't exist, he sends you to hell regardless of your actions? I don't know. It sounds more like a business scheme to me. And at first, I was like, haha, God's not real. All you people praying to your imaginary friend are not as smart as me. But then the reality of my situation set in. Oh no. We're alone on a rock, hurtling through time and space. We don't know how anything came to be, what anything is. Why does gravity even work this way? Why is there something? What is something? What is nothing? Is there a third option I'm not thinking of? What happens when we die? See, that last one scared me. What happens when we die? Well, nothing. It's like a computer that's been turned off and it doesn't compute or calculate anymore. It's like that vast ocean of gray, inky nothingness before you were born. It's like being trapped in a dreamless, thoughtless sleep that you immediately forget about when you wake up. There is nothing when we die. The energies left in your body get released through rigor mortis, the chemicals that made up how you think and feel are returned to mush for bugs to eat, and you quit being a living, breathing, thinking person. You are instead reduced to a thing with the same sentience as a rock, and it's unavoidable. It will happen, and there is no getting around it. To you, your parents, your children, your dog, your neighbor, everyone you've ever loved. How callous and cruel and scary is that? To give me something as amazing and gorgeous as awareness and thought only to rip it out of my hands. That scared me. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't focus at concerts, at movies, with family. It was like this basilisk that killed me from the inside out the moment I became aware of it. Despite all that, I decided to plow through school headfirst. Bad Kid School was awesome. They were not joking about the zero homework policy. I even made fast friends with the burnt-out English teacher. Since there was no homework, I had tons of free time on my hands. I did one last Punk in the Park music festival, and that wound up being a pretty serious high note. We got the Frights, Honey, and King Shelter amongst a ton of other really good local bands to play in my little farming town, Kuna, Idaho. I thought back to Swoozy and my other new favorite channel, The Odd Ones Out. I was good at storytelling, drawing stick figures, and editing video. Gosh dang it, why don't I have a YouTube channel? I'd had the idea before. I had the name NateIsLame saved for the past few years. Why not use it? So using my free time, I started this YouTube channel. I uploaded once a week and I had some fun. This is about the time that I met my good friend Scooter Abraham, bless his heart. Scooter, I hope you're doing well if you see this.
Yes, Nate, I'm fine. Stop sending me nudes.
A few of my classmates found my channel and became big fans, which was weird. They would often quote my videos back to me as if I was some TV character and not some person they'd spent the last year and a half going to school with. I was still super into music, but my school didn't allow for Spotify or YouTube on laptops that they gave to everybody. Students had to get crafty in order to sneak around the district's firewall. Thankfully, Bandcamp was still allowed. I built up an impressive collection of underground music. I eventually found this little artist called Hekra. He had like 14 fans, and I thought his album artwork was cool. Remember the clique I had with Gorillaz and 21 Pilots? He's number 3. His music was brilliant and unlike anything I'd ever heard before. Absolutely incredible. I was obsessed. Hekra, to this day, is my favorite musical artist, by the way. I still remembered my promise to Frank Iero about starting a band, so I thought I'd make a little group with my friends and just do the talent show. We called ourselves ST Demon Seed, goofed the school administration by playing 2 songs instead of 1 for our set, and we wound up getting over 3.6 million views on YouTube, even though it was like a really bad performance. For my senior project, I wanted to make a song. I was kicked out of Cadus long prior and I wanted to start doing my own thing. I thought back to that song I made when I was 14 called So Far and Running. I traveled to Twin Falls, Idaho to record it in a basement under a bike repair shop. I wrapped it up and I released it to all the streaming apps under the name Raccoon Tour. That song wound up getting over 1 million streams on Spotify, and I was also in the top 1% of the highest senior project final grades in the entire school district, not to toot my own horn. I remember sitting in the cafeteria by myself after school one day, reflecting on all the cool stuff I had going for me. There were years of music under my belt, tons of wonderful friends, a cool girlfriend who I'd been dating for the past year, lots of exciting rebellious stories. How could this get any better? And then I checked my phone to see that my channel had just surpassed 100,000 subscribers. Less than a year after posting my first video, my channel had seen tons of love and adoration from millions of people. How incredible is that? I graduated high school and I was beaming with pride. My girlfriend at the time was living in a rough situation, so the two of us moved in with my high school friend Trey Wells in an apartment. I was actually making enough money on YouTube to pay for rent, food, and even loan cash out to pals when it was needed. Girlfriend and I got a super cute bearded dragon and we named it Hekla. One day, I got an email from a little record label called I Surrender Records. I remembered listening to the High Court in Midtown in middle school, both of which were signed to I Surrender Records, so I knew they were the real deal. They offered to sign me after listening to So Far and Running, and they shot over a contract. I read over it pretty quickly and I was like, sure, why not? And I made it official. So Raccoon Tour is now a big boy band after just 1 song, no live shows, and we needed to have an entire album soon. I had bits and pieces of songs made up from high school. How hard could it be? Really hard, it turns out. I kept going back and forth to Twin Falls every other weekend for months on end, slowly chipping away at the album. My engineer and producer had to drive 2 hours from Twin Falls to Boise, 2 hours back. We would record, and then he would drive back to Boise and then back home again. I didn't have a driver's license because of that nasty car wreck I had when I was 5. Cars are dangerous, and nobody seems to realize it, you know? My inability to drive was super annoying for everyone around me, and God knows it certainly led to some nasty fights with my girlfriend at the time. After living with Trey, I decided that I needed to live in downtown Boise. It was trendy, it was hip, it was beautiful, and there's a vibrant music scene a walk away. Girlfriend and I moved in and we made a super nice life for ourselves. I had a little routine where I'd sleep sleep in, play video games, watch Netflix, cook food, and eat snacks while she worked a brutal and occasionally traumatic job at an animal shelter. Can you imagine her frustration coming home after a full day of work to see her boyfriend sitting on the couch in a messy apartment? The sink full of dirty dishes, laundry everywhere, Mario Maker 2 on the TV, and it was clear that I was not doing any work on YouTube either. I was actually really slowing down on YouTube. I went from uploads once a week to twice a month to twice a year. It was bad. The algorithm started to drop me. I had fans slipping through. Every time that I'd upload, I would lose hundreds of subscribers because so many people had forgotten that they'd even subscribed to me, and now they're being spammed for stuff from a stranger. And like, how stupid, you know? To build this amazing channel and cultivate hundreds of thousands of supporters, there's a steady income, a built-in audience of thousands for any other endeavor that I pursue, and just to let it sit because you don't feel like doing it for months on end. At least I still had good old Raccoon Tour. After months and months of going back and forth from Twin Falls, we submitted our final version of Denton Weaver to the label. I really don't think they loved it. The recordings were incredibly amateurish. There were tons of mistakes that I allowed to just pass because I didn't want to annoy anybody by having them re-record stuff, and I just had no idea what I was doing the whole time. It was my first time tackling something this big with huge expectations on me. It really showed. The album didn't turn out good, tons of people's time had been wasted while working on it, my channel was actively dying, and I need to look into getting a real job since ad revenue is really drying up. I'm complacent, I'm lazy, it's building animosity with my friends and loved ones. How could this get any worse? Bam! Girlfriend dumped me. Bam! I'm kicked out of the house and I have to move back in with my parents. Bam! Guess what? It's 2020 and there's a hot new single in your area. I just blacked out January 2020. I legitimately do not recollect what happened that month. There are no journals, no Instagram stories, no Facebook posts, no way to recall anything that happened. Just sadness. The worst breakup of my entire life, losing my shared pets, an apartment, and a good chunk of my friend group. I just got really emo. But not this kind of emo. The bad kind of emo. Shout out to I Surrender Records who picked up on all this. They called me and they were like, "Hey champ, we hear things are bad right now. What do you say we fly you out to New York City, have you record with this world-class engineer and producer Brett Romness, and remake your album from scratch the way that you intended it?" I cannot say enough good things about them because they gave me so much purpose and excitement during this most miserable time of my life. I was supposed to record my debut album in March 2020, but
China has identified the cause of the mysterious new virus.
Coronavirus.
that didn't happen, especially in New York City and the New Jersey area. We had to postpone recording until December. So right about now, I was still feeling a little sad. Not as sad as I was before hearing the news that I was going to get a second chance at my album, but I was still sad, you know? I was like, yo, I'm single for the first time in my adult life. How about I hop on Tinder and make some bad self-destructive decisions? And once you know it, I actually felt madly in love with the first person I matched with. I matched with PJ, who became my best friend and companion through COVID. They would come over for their lunch breaks, we'd go out running, PJ inspired me to pick up gourmet cooking so I could cook really nice dinners for them, and they encouraged me to get my driver's license. PJ made everything better. Now listen, I'm 23 right now, and anything could change between now and the future. It's generally dangerous to talk about partners on YouTube because breakups are always a huge and very real possibility. It would be weird to gush about somebody only to have a weird, ugly breakup a few years later and have all this mushy-gushy stuff immortalized, you know? With that in mind, PJ has been my best friend for the past 4 years, and they have made everything in my life better. I am incredibly thankful to have found them when I did. And if things end up not working out between us, PJ still helped me build this incredible foundation for myself. Thank you, PJ. December 2020 finally arrived. I flew out to New York City and I met Mr. I Surrender Records himself. He treated me to a wonderful day of exploring New York City, shipped me off to Hopac to record in barbershop studios, and he got me home within a week. The Denton Weaver, as you know it now, was recorded in just 5 days because I knew every single one of these songs like the back of my hand because I'd recorded them 3 times previously. Like, making an entire album in 5 days is insane. Ask any of your band friends. Raccoon Tour is getting serious. We'd played a few shows, but nothing serious or professional yet. I assembled a team of Trey Wells, Jeremy Abbott, various revolving bass players, and Randy McCurdy to bring the Raccoon Tour songs to life. Now that we had stems and real songs to practice to, we could really up our live game. We played shows around Boise, built up a modest fan base, we had about 30 to 40,000 monthly listeners on Spotify, we even got to film a fancy music video, the Denton Weaver has been released and people seem to like it, everything is fantastic. I can't live on YouTube money anymore and I need to get a real job. I worked an awesome, amazing gig as a reptile zookeeper where I helped care for hundreds of surrendered animals and I traveled to schools to teach kids about them. I loved every second of it. Even the parts where my boss asked me to wrestle 16-foot reticulated pythons, wrangle alligators, or that time a California king snake bit and latched onto my earlobe. It was very funny. I woke up one morning in a cold sweat with the realization, I'm 23 years old. I have no college. My entire life experience consists of drawing cartoons for YouTube, playing ukulele, fighting alligators. I am going nowhere in my life. That sent me into an existential manic spiral. Maybe I'll move to Los Angeles. Nope. Too hot, too expensive, too desperate. Maybe I'll go to college full time. Sure, that would be cool. I looked into it and I came this close to joining the National Guard to pay for tuition. I got an 85 on the ASVAB, which my recruiter was very excited about. However, the MEPS turned me away after discovering that I had a history of what he called transient passive suicidal idealization. That basically means that at one point I told my counselor that I wanted to sleep for 3 months. College was a bust. I eventually re-internalized. I'm gonna die. This life is all that I have. The thoughts, feelings, and sensations that I have are the only things that I will ever be. Why would I waste these precious moments in the army, working a miserable job, living somewhere I hate? Why do any of that when you don't get to keep it when you die? I went down rabbit holes of people's last words and wishes upon their deathbeds. The most common things that I read were, I wish I didn't work so hard. I wish I did what brought me joy. I wish I pursued my dreams. I'm almost 24. I'm not gonna have much of my 20s left soon. Kids from my high school were already dying, and there were plenty of them working in call centers to get by. If I were to die 3 years after doing military work to pay for a computer science degree, would I be happy? Raccoon tour, art, and adventures. Those are the things that bring me joy. Those are the things that make me happy. Why has it taken me so long to take this seriously? Why am I just now buckling? Did it really have to take the crushing weight of my own mortality to wake up and get my butt going? So, I decided that I need to move to New Jersey. It's the birthplace of third wave emo, stuff like My Chemical Romance and Thursday. My music will fit right in. There's infrastructure like management and agencies. It's right next to New York City, Philadelphia, and Boston, so touring will be a breeze. I gave my family and the reptile job 6 months notice. I started stashing away money, writing Raccoon Tour's second album. I've really gone ham on Raccoon Tour. Summer 2023, we wrapped a tour with Ogbert the Nerd in some new cities. We wound up playing the main stage in Idaho's biggest music festival, and we also played a gigantic final show to say goodbye to Boise, Idaho. Eventually, it kind of set in. I'm leaving Idaho for the first time in my life. Not another town over, not even another state over. To the far side of the continent is where I'm going. I packed every one of my belongings and jammed them into my Prius and spent 5 days driving. I made sure to stop in Kansas City on the 15th of August for a very special occasion. Remember that Hecra dude I listened to in high school? After 10 years of releasing music, he played his first show ever that day. He invited me to stay at his house, watch him rehearse, get dinner with him, and play ukulele on one of his songs live. To see Hecra surprised by the audience response to this little art project he made as a teenager, his wife cheering him on as he sang songs about not being able to get a girlfriend a decade prior, and seeing him beaming with joy playing tracks about being miserable, it made my heart smile. And now, here I am. Currently writing the script in New Jersey. I'm terrified. I'm broke. I hate the parking situation out here, and the constant anxiety that I'm gonna get ticketed for trying to load in groceries. It sucks. I'm lonely. I miss my friends and my pals, but if I don't make this work, I'm gonna regret it for the rest of my life. This is me formally stating that I'm going to try and wake this channel back up. I'm going to try and make my dumb music project, Raccoon Tour, something sustainable that I can be proud of and afford rent with. I'm gonna try and make you all proud. And by golly, if there's something in your life that you can't stand the thought of not doing, you should be doing that. You get one shot. There are no takebacks. You could die at any moment, and it's just back to sleep, back to the dirt after that. I know 23 is pretty young to have the audacity to make a Draw My Life video, especially 10 years after the trend died, but I hope you'll stick around and see what happens next. So, yeah, like, subscribe, comment the song and dance. Thank you so much for everything. I hope this isn't another mistake. I have a playlist of songs I think you might like in the description. Stay safe, stay smart, stay spicy, take care.
Bye.